really the top story this morning, the true melting of the ice between the NFL franchises and Colin Kaepernick, because after 3+ years of Kaepernick being shunned, Chris, now they're talking openly about Colin Kaepernick. Anthony Lynn, the Chargers coach, spoke with the media on Wednesday and was asked about Colin Kaepernick. Here is what Lynn had to say.
I mean, he was a starting quarterback, a Super Bowl quarterback in this league. I think it would be crazy to not have him on your workout list. Colin definitely fits the style of quarterback for the system that we're going to be running. And I'm very confident and happy with the 3 quarterbacks that I have. But, you can never have too many people waiting on the runway.
And look, the gist of it from Anthony Lynn was that Colin Kaepernick is on the list now. He's on the workout list. And it's obvious that over the last 3 years, that list that every team maintains of quarterbacks to call in the event that a guy gets injured or that a guy just isn't any good, that list did not include Colin Kaepernick because he wasn't getting the calls other than a visit to the Seahawks in 2017, a workout with the Seahawks that was eventually aborted in 2018. That was it. That was all that Kaepernick got. So he wasn't on the list. Well, now he is. Now that the commissioner has come out on multiple occasions, specifically one occasion this week, and said, I encourage teams to sign Colin Kaepernick, he's popping up on these lists, Chris. I mean, on one hand, better late than never. On the other hand, it kind of proves in a roundabout way that he has been blackballed.
Yes, it does. I think what Roger Goodell did, the statements he made last weekend or last week, whenever it was, about Colin Kaepernick and those issues and everything like that, I do think it started people having the conversation more, and has probably encouraged teams to have the conversation too. I thought Anthony Lynn, he was, I think, sending out some, silent signals there, right? I mean, he was kind of basically saying, of course he's good enough to play in the NFL. I feel like he was almost putting a little pressure on his own team. Hey, we'll welcome him here. We can never have enough good quarterbacks on the roster, certainly. So I think just with the NFL's take, and of course where we are in America right now, I think this conversation is going to, embolden a lot of front office people, coaches, maybe people that were scared of this situation and Colin Kaepernick and everything that goes along with it. Now, I think there's going to be more acceptance and conversation, and I think ultimately that will lead to Colin Kaepernick on a football team and back in the NFL.
We'll see if that's the case or whether or not people are just paying lip service. The reality, though, is we had never heard things like this before, and to have Lynn come out and make it clear. And look, let's look at the Chargers, because I think a fit is there. I think that if Colin Kaepernick and Tyrod Taylor had a chance to compete head-to-head for the starting job, with the loser being the backup, and Justin Herbert having a scholarship year to kind of watch and learn in 2020, would Kaepernick have a chance to beat out Tyrod Taylor? I mean, Kaepernick at his best is better than Taylor at his best. The question is, how long does it take Kaepernick to get back to the point where and even if he can get back to the point where
that's the question.
He is as good as he ever was? That's really the issue that would have to be resolved in a month of training camp.
Yeah, that's it, Mike. You're right. I mean, the first part of your question, I think at a base level, hey, it. Anybody that's got eyes and was watching football, over the last decade, Colin Kaepernick at his best, certainly better than Tyrod Taylor. And that's no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor. I know he's a good player and does a lot of things. Kaepernick's special. Kaepernick was running for 70 and 80-yard runs on the Legion of Boom when nobody could get 4-yard runs on the Legion of Boom. And he was throwing lasers around the field against the Legion of Boom when everybody was struggling to do anything. So he was a special, special talent. Did it fall off a little bit there? Yeah, of course it did. Why, Mike? Because it's a team sport, and he was coached by some people that were not deserving of being a head coach, and the team fell apart. But he was still every bit as worthy of being a starting quarterback at that point. So, I don't know if he can compete with him right away, but he could definitely justify a roster spot in doing that, Mike, no doubt.
And I want to share something specific about the final few years of Colin Kaepernick's career in San Francisco. That's better off in a few minutes when we play sound from someone else. For now, for the Chargers, he fits. And here's the other side of it, too. Okay, they're competing with the Rams in L.A., and they're losing.
Yeah, I know.
You had Colin Kaepernick, and all of a sudden, Colin Kaepernick's jersey becomes the hottest selling jersey in all of football, in all of sports, and the Chargers become the more attractive team in LA and beyond, they would leave the Rams in the dust if they signed Colin Kaepernick and said it's Kaepernick and Taylor competing in training camp to see who the starter is. Now, it requires a coach with the kind of quiet strength that Anthony Lynn possesses to be able to say Tyrod's the better guy, because there will be people openly rooting for Kaepernick to be the starter, and Anthony Lynn's going to have to decide who the better guy is if it comes down to it. It looks like it's not. It looks like if Tyrod Taylor gets injured, Kaepernick's going to get the call. But the point is, there are real reasons here for the Chargers to pursue this. And if he was just introducing the message into the organization by putting some pressure on them by talking about it publicly, Tom Telesco, the GM, and the Spanos family should really take a step back and say, from a business standpoint, this could be very interesting for us. From a fan development standpoint, and again, who wants to be the modern-day Branch Rickey? Anthony Lynn, Tom Telesco, Spanos family crammed together would get that recognition for being the ones to finally do the right thing after 3.5 years.
Yeah, no, I think all the points I'm with you. I mean, I hear you. You make all the right points. Mike, I thought about you as soon as I heard Anthony Lynn make these comments. First off, I went, ooh, he's kind of, first one to address the situation, pretty much say he deserves to be in the NFL, put a little pressure on his own team to say, hey, we could handle him. He fits our system. That's great. Mike, I only see one thing that we could question as a negative with Kaepernick and the Chargers. And that's the fact that they drafted a rookie quarterback at number 6, right? And maybe they just don't want to have another cook in the kitchen to take away attention from him and compete against him. And who knows, maybe ultimately Kaepernick comes back and does look as good as he looked 4 years ago. And then you go, oh, man, we got a guy here that's kind of threatening to our sixth pick of the draft. So that'd be the only thing. I don't think that's a big thing, especially with, like you said, I think there's a good chance Herbert gets redshirted. We'll see how that goes. But I think it's certainly something an organization and coaches would have to talk about before they brought him in, if you have a top 10 pick quarterback that you just took.
They've been down this road before, though, when they got Phillip Rivers as the 4th overall pick. Remember, Eli Manning was the 1st overall pick by the Chargers. They traded him for Rivers, who was picked 4th by the Giants. He sat behind Drew Brees for 2 seasons, 2 full seasons behind Brees, and they eventually let Brees leave via free agency. The problem is, if Kaepernick ends up, now this falls into the good problem to have category, I assume. If Kaepernick ends up being really good for the Chargers, then how long do you keep Justin Herbert on the bench? Because ideally, by 2021, 2022 at the latest, Herbert's the guy. But still, again, it would be a good problem to have Kaepernick come in and play so well that you're thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do with Justin Herbert? But it sounds like that move is many moves down the road for the Chargers. The bigger thing is somebody finally coming out and saying, yes, he's on our list for potential workouts, and we'll see if they have to put their money where their mouth is at some point in the future. Now, Mark Davis, the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, chiming in. Here's a quote that he gave to Paul Gutierrez of ESPN. Since 2017, I've told the coaches and general managers that if they want to hire Colin Kaepernick, they have my blessing. Well, 2 things. First of all, it would have been nice for him to say that publicly in 2017 at a time when it was clear that Colin Kaepernick was being collectively shunned by the NFL. I mean, we're going to start having people come out of the woodwork now saying, hey, I've been fine with this all along. Okay, you should have said so 3 years ago. Secondly,
I had a first-round grade on Tom Brady. You know that?
Exactly, Bill.
Yeah,
right. Secondly, and others, not Belichick. Secondly, if Mark Davis, I've always told them if they want to hire Colin Kaepernick, they have my blessing. If you really want to do that, go ahead. I mean, it's up to you. Sometimes the way it's communicated, you send the message of what you really want. Hey, it's your job. I mean, if you want to hire him, go ahead. I mean, so I don't put a lot of stock in that on the surface, especially when there have been ample opportunities for Mark Davis over the last 3 years to stand up and say, hey, what's going on here in the NFL? Why aren't people hiring this guy? I've told my people go ahead and hire him. So, and I know Mark Davis needs to toe the party line to a certain extent, but also the owner of the Raiders historically, whether it's Mark Davis or Al Davis, has not been all that concerned about saying the things that the league office would want him to say. So I just wonder, where was this at any point before yesterday.
Well, I know. I think that's but I think this is like positive signs in some way. You're right, and listen, I don't doubt Mark Davis. He probably has said that to his coaches and everybody else. I don't, but you're right. You'd like to have seen that support at a time where back in time it was more relevant or is more supportive. But I think the positives we could take out of this, Mike, again, is here we got two prominent people in the NFL on the same day. On the same day, the president questioned Kaepernick and things like that, who kind of gave him an endorsement. And I think that says something to where we are as a society and certainly where we are in the NFL. That we're not going to be like deterred from anything here as far as the main goal, the main mission, supporting our players, and they're not going to be scared off this pedestal of talking about Colin Kaepernick because it makes a certain part of America uncomfortable. And I do like that aspect of it nonetheless.
There's a sense that they're chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at this. But the question is, do they keep chipping until the dam breaks? I know I'm mixing metaphors, but do they keep chipping or do they just stop and say, okay, that's enough? People are satisfied that we're saying the right things about Colin Kaepernick. I don't think that that's going to be enough. I think it's creating this momentum where if Kaepernick doesn't end up on a team, it's all going to feel very incomplete. The president yesterday, answering questions from Sinclair reporter Scott Thuman, had this to say about Colin Kaepernick. It's kind of a compliment and kind of an insult wrapped into one. Here it is.
When it comes to sports and kneeling, do you think Colin Kaepernick should get another shot in the NFL?
If he deserves it, he should. If he has the playing ability, he started off great, and then he didn't end up very great in terms of as a player. He was terrific in his rookie year. I think he was very good in his second year, and then something happened, so his playing wasn't up to snuff. The answer is absolutely I would. As far as kneeling, I would love to see him get another shot, but obviously he has to be able to play well. If he can't play well, I think it would be very unfair.
Okay, so I don't have any problem with him playing, but he's no good. That's why he's not playing. And look, that's kind of almost word for word identical to what the president said back in August when he was asked about Colin Kaepernick. Now, it wasn't as big of an issue then as it is now, but the idea is, I don't have any problem with the team signing him. He just isn't any good. And let's be clear about his career as a starter. First of all, he didn't play as a rookie. It was 2012 when he came in after Alex Smith suffered a concussion. He played well enough to keep Smith on the bench. He ended up being the starter the rest of the year. They almost won the Super Bowl. 2013, he was very good enough to get a major contract extension in 2014. And that's when the problems started for him as a starter. The last year of Jim Harbaugh and all the dysfunction between him and Trent Baalke, that contributed to the team being not very good. That contributed to Kaepernick having a bit of a regression. The next year, Jim Tomsula as the head coach, something that, all due respect, Jim, never should have happened. That contributed to further regression. And then 2016, Chip Kelly, who never should have been the head coach, that's when it all bottomed out. And that's when Colin Kaepernick in 2016, everybody said, he got benched for Blaine Gabbert. He wasn't healthy at the start of the season. He went into the year, off-season, needing 3 different surgeries, Chris. 3 different surgeries. They tried to trade him to the Broncos because he didn't fit with what Chip Kelly was doing. He wasn't healthy. They couldn't trade him. He had fully guaranteed money as of April 1 that they couldn't get away from because of the surgeries, and he couldn't pass a physical before April 1. And then when he finally did play, they weren't good enough to win football games. And yes, he was declining as a starter. That doesn't mean he should have been flushed out of the league altogether. Mitchell Trubisky has declined as a starter. That doesn't mean he gets flushed out of the league after 2020 if Nick Foles becomes the guy with the Bears. Trubisky goes somewhere else as a backup, just like Jameis Winston, just like Marcus Mariota. You don't get flushed out of the league just because the window has closed on you as a starter, because number one, the window could open again, and number two, you're still good enough to be number 2 on someone else's team because there aren't 64 good quarterbacks to go around. So I don't understand how the people who don't want to see Colin Kaepernick employed just gloss over the fact that if he was regressing as a starter, he deserves to not work in the NFL at all.
Yeah, well, that's just it's BS talking points, Mike. I mean, that's all that is. I mean, we shouldn't even pay attention to
But
that.
I
Yeah,
deal with him all day, every day. I deal with him all day,
you
every
do.
day.
I
Oh,
don't know. I
you
don't
said
know.
he wasn't. You said he wasn't good enough to be a starter 4 years ago. Well, he wasn't. That doesn't mean he should be ejected from the NFL. He should go somewhere
Right.
and be a backup.
Well, Mike, and it goes back to my, age-old adage where I always talk about, like, hey, I don't care who you are. We could have put a lot of quarterbacks on that team in San Francisco under Mike Tomsula and Chip Kelly at that time, and they would have looked a lot worse than they are in reality. You got to have a system, teammates around you to support you, coaching staff that's, able to adjust to the NFL and things like that. I mean, Chip Kelly, we're seeing, he didn't exactly go back to college football and start tearing it up again. So the NFL had caught on to that offense. So for people to argue that they are truly just haters and they're trying to change the subject or don't want to deal with the subject or whatever it may be. Colin Kaepernick, yes, in 2016, was he at his best? No. Was he still, in my opinion, one of the best 32 quarterbacks in football? Yes, he was. He has a special skill set, very special. I mean, the fact that he can run away from DBs and safeties, and he has an unbelievably powerful arm throwing the football, those are two assets that are, huge in making quarterbacks successful. You don't always have to have that, but that was part of what made him successful. And for anybody else to argue anything else is just, it's insane. So, again, like I said, we could have put a lot of good quarterbacks on those teams right there, and we would have gone, are they still starting quarterback caliber? And I would have said, yes, they are. They've just got a lot of crap around them. And when you got a lot of crap around you, sometimes you start to smell and look like crap too.
Lovely. Enjoy your breakfast or your lunch in the UK. Here's the thing. 2016, he still started 11 games. Once he was healthy, they benched Blaine Gabbert, and he started 11 games.
Right.
They were 1-10 in the games he started, which is horrendous. He still had 16 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions, which under the circumstances is stunning.
It is. That's where I look at it, and I've had these conversations with radio people on my podcast, whatever it may be. 1-10. Okay, I get it. Nobody expected any of those games like the 49ers were supposed to win them or do anything special. And yeah, at the very least, he showed you, okay, even though he might have not been playing his best, and certainly the team wasn't his best, he could take care of the football, and he was still capable of making plays that a lot of other quarterbacks in the game couldn't. So, yeah, listen, there's no argument as far as that's concerned. There's only one reason he hasn't been in the NFL. We know what that is, okay? And hopefully now we're seeing the tide turning and the NFL is being more accepting of it. They're not bowing down to the political pressure, the president, anything like that. And I'm hopeful. I think the NFL is smart enough this time around to know, and what you've been banging on the table for, Mike, the guy needs to be on a team. And then all this talk and huffing and puffing we've been doing is for nothing if it doesn't get Colin Kaepernick back in the league and kind of set the record straight. And I think that would go over big with the society and, of course, the players in the league.
And, Chris, the political pressure is going nowhere. The president was on Sean Hannity's show last night on Fox News and reiterated once again his mandate that thou shalt stand for the national anthem, and targeted Drew Brees. I don't know why he caved. I don't know why he retracted his beautiful statement that he made a few weeks ago one day later, and then went after the commissioner too and made the comment, I don't know why he put that video statement out. Nobody was asking for it, which the players were demanding it. It was a reaction to a very compelling video that apparently the president's the only person in the country that didn't see that video. So it was kind of strange to take that shot at Goodell. But the point is that button, that very easy button, it's like press a button and get a piece of candy. He's going to keep pressing that button and getting pieces of candy from now until the election because he sees no downside to saying you must stand for the anthem, because when he says that, his base is going to say, hell yeah, you must stand for the anthem. So the thing is, the NFL no longer seems to be hiding under its bed when that issue comes up. Not that they're going to engage him in an all-out fight. I just think they're going to ignore him. And the best way to show that they're willing to ignore him is to say, hey, Colin Kaepernick's back in the NFL, and you know what? Plenty of players are going to be kneeling.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.